Turning now to our special report on the precedent for what just went down. When you hear about this search of a former president's home, before you know anything else, you know the feds must be confident here. They didn't just get the required judicial approval. They must be certain that the law is on their side. So, why is that? Well, the answer is actually very clear, and it includes some additional bad news for Trump. Whether he's learned about this yet or not, you're going to learn about it right now if you stay with me, because this body of law on state secrets is tough. And the DOJ has a history of being tough, of prosecuting officials in this very area, even if they previously had high security clearances or commanded battalions or even ran the CIA. The Justice Department has just proven time and time again, because of the nature of the issues here, Andrew Weissmann referred to some of this, that they, the DOJ, are willing to pursue and prosecute and indict and sometimes convict and incarcerate people who were even recent colleagues atop the government or served in administrations with them or were in either party, or even people who have been viewed by many as wartime heroes. Bottom line, there is a case history here, and it shows that serious people have been in serious legal trouble for even less than this. That's the legal backbone for the dramatic search and raid of Donald Trump's home. High-level government officials have been prosecuted for this related issue of whether you are mishandling classified documents or spilling state secrets or doing anything, especially after you were in office, to endanger the United States. This is serious stuff. So let's get into it. Take Sandy Berger, National Security Advisor to President Clinton. He was in charge of all kinds of national security and intelligence issues while in office, as I emphasized, had that valid role. But after he left that post, just like Donald Trump did, then you're a citizen again. So Mr. Berger lost any legal claim to those top secret materials for the most part, and he was indicted and ultimately convicted for doing something that would have been legal when he had the job. He basically grabbed some classified documents secretly out of the National Archives. This was back in 2003. And his reason was, he said, also fair, because he was trying to prepare himself for important government testimony. Then, when caught, Berger at first claimed it was all some kind of accident.
Today, his lawyer says Berger set them aside to read later and accidentally carried them out.
But unfortunately, and he's admitted it was an inadvertent mistake, he shouldn't have done it, but he did mistakenly take the document.
The innocent explanation is the most likely one, particularly given the facts involved.
That was a big deal. He was a big figure in sort of Democratic security circles. It did not end there. Berger busted as that whole defense fell apart. What Clinton said there didn't prove to be right. An investigation found he actively hid the papers, stuffed them in his pockets several times to furtively get them out of the archives, and also destroyed some with scissors. He admitted all of this. Now, what happens when you do that? Well, there have already been reports about Donald Trump in the White House trying to destroy documents in a toilet or a fireplace. The Times has this photo relating to this happening inside a White House toilet. But Mr. Berger ultimately cooperated, something that we haven't seen as reported in the top of the broadcast about much of what has happened at Mar-a-Lago. Berger cooperated, he pled guilty, and that led to an arrangement where he was fined $50,000. He lost his security clearance. He was under 2 years probation, 100 hours of community service. So it was real punishment at the end of the road, although he did avoid jail time with that cooperation. Now, let me tell you something else. There's so much cynicism these days, and there's so much trolling and lying designed to just sort of chip away at the reality in front of you. And yet today, the reality is that the independent justice system is working, that it is apparently nonpartisan, that it is being overseen by judges, as it is supposed to. Now, you know who one of the top prosecutors was who was overseeing this very case, who announced that Berger plea deal? His name is Mr. Chris Wray. At the time, he was at DOJ. Now he's ascended to FBI director because Donald Trump picked him for that post. It is Mr. Wray who has been directly hands-on in these key decisions, so he knows exactly how this works, and anyone who wants to bring it up or try to bring in history and politics will have to deal with the fact that Mr. Wray is a Trump appointee who has previously been assertive in this classified area of the law against Democrats. And now it's his FBI that conducted this raid in this classified area of the law against a former Republican president. Now, there's a prosecutor here who thinks there was enough evidence to warrant the search of Mar-a-Lago. Reuters reporting this raid would be approved, of course, the way it works, by Mr. Wray. So all of this is the context. That's just one case. Let me tell you about another one I bet many people remember, David Petraeus. He was, of course, a military veteran, considered a war hero, broadly popular in many ways, and he was CIA director, also served in both parties. But ultimately, he had to plead guilty because he had basically shared or leaked classified information with a biographer with whom he had a relationship and then later lied about it. He told the FBI he didn't give the information out. And in that case, which was very heavy, jail time was on the table. It went to court, as I mentioned, because of that deal. Judge, in that case, ultimately fined Petraeus $100,000, which was higher than the prosecutors asked for, citing the seriousness of the offense. Mr. Petraeus, though, for reasons mentioned, including his service to country, did not actually go to prison, and others viewed it as all, even still, too lenient.
David Petraeus, who once also headed up the CIA, was sentenced today to 2 years probation and fined $100,000.
Lawyers are citing it as an example of, hey, well, if he got off with that, our guy should get off with a similarly lenient sentence.
So that was going on then. And remember, whether you think that that was a lot of punishment or there could have been more, even that was more than a home search. You had the reputational damage, you had consequences, you have probation in one of those cases. And here you have the ongoing apparent alleged defiance by this person who's a former government official, Donald Trump, of the DOJ. But the bottom line is, and you see it in these cases, no one's above the law, especially not the people who are actually granted these extra powers in office. In other words, as you think about Donald Trump last night complaining about this out of New York, there's this conspiracy theory that crops up every time with these problems where you say, oh, well, Donald Trump and these people think that somehow they are being treated differently. They need people to think that. The history shows something else. The DOJ is confident because it's gone at these cases before against war heroes, against veterans of both parties, because, and I'm sorry I have to say this out loud, but it doesn't matter who you are and what position you had. If you are endangering the state secrets of the United States government, you are putting people's lives at risk. If you're doing it when you've been on notice and you're doing it potentially illegally, then yes, that, as has happened before, can be enforced as a felony.